Hello, I'm Barbara Levin, and I'm speaking today with Mary Ewert, one of McHenry County Citizens for Choice board members and longtime supporters. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Barbara.
Um,
Thank you for inviting me.
I am delighted. Mary, let's start here. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? For instance, how long have you been in McHenry County?
Sure. I moved to McHenry County with my family in 1975.
Oh,
Um, my husband and I had two very young children at that time, but he grew up in McHenry County, as did his mother. So they were kind of McHenry County old timers. Um, I married into the family from a farm in central Illinois. So that was my background in the Springfield area, but out in a very small town.
oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
When did you get involved with MCCC?
Well, early on in the formation of the group, it was 1989 through 1991. It sort of evolved during that time. And the origin was through McHenry County school bus driver who drove a group of children to Springfield for some type of project or event or something. And at the time, I can't remember if there were anti-choice protesters. There was some abortion related discussion going on. And so while she was waiting for the children, she was observing this and was disturbed by it. So she then sort of spearheaded a group of women who got together, and we had quite a lot of input from Naral, Illinois, which was here at the time. Their presence in Illinois now is not as strong as it was at that point. And then after maybe a year or so, we decided that we would like to just be our own local group and, of course, use materials from Naral, information and such, and Planned Parenthood. And really the reason we decided to do that was because we wanted our legislators to know that there were people in our sort of suburban / rural area who were supportive of women's reproductive rights. Because some of the time when we would try speaking with legislators, they would say, well, that's just those Planned Parenthood people in Chicago. So it was very much the metropolitan radical feminists. So we were saying, well, no, actually, we're out here. We're like you. We have our kids here, they're going to school, and as our president would say, we don't have horns or anything, so you can see us. So that was really why we wanted to make it a local group. And so I've been involved since that time, so it's really been a long period of time.
Truly, it's very compelling, and what a good point you make that this is a woman's issue. It's not an urban woman's issue. It's a woman's issue. It's a person's issue. A
Yes,
human
yes.
issue. um, I always ask this of people. Do you remember the moment that you heard that the Supreme Court how they had ruled in Roe v. Wade?
Well, sadly, my feminist sensibility was just sort of developing around that time. And I have to say, my husband, I would say, introduced me to feminism because he liked strong, independent women. And so I think really I come from a Catholic background. I went to grade school, high school, college. So I wasn't really encouraged to be a feminist. And I think that, so the way we talked about things and everything really made an impact on me. So really, at the time of Roe v. Wade, I had two young children, and they were born just in the years prior to Roe v. Wade. So I should have been interested because, although they were planned pregnancies and wanted, I think we're seeing now with restrictions that can really impact a woman's health around the time of giving birth and such. So, but no, sadly, I have a vague memory that it was in the news. When I was at Catholic Women's College, which would have been in the late 60s, there were, students there talking about it, and there were real supporters of abortion rights. I was on the fringes. I wouldn't say that I really had developed much knowledge or an opinion. So.
Well, I think you're being modest because obviously you must have had some feminist tendencies because you went on to graduate school, you went ahead and got your doctorate.
Yes. Well, I think that's the other side of the positive side of Catholic Women's College in any event, because the nuns who were there were really in it for the academic experience. And I think many of them were there to empower women. So some of them were very shocked when I got married before I finished college. It was like, what are you doing? You know, you have this opportunity to study, and you're going to be a homemaker? They kind of didn't get that. So I think that there was that influence too. And I think that that had a real impact.
Isn't that interesting? Well, and also you prompted me to divert a little bit. You said that your husband kind of greased the wheels for you to get into feminism. What made him a feminist? Do you know?
Oh, gee, the only thing I can think of, well, he was very much for people having control over their bodies and such. He wasn't somebody, he was not dogmatic, he was not religious at all. So I think that it grew from that. And also his father was very kind, very helpful in the home. There were two boys, himself and his brother, and I think they learned a lot about equality in their own home, because his father actually enjoyed cooking more than his mother did. And, and there wasn't any dissension within the home because of that. So I think that some of it grew out of that too.
Interesting, unusual. Interesting.
Yes, especially in that era. And also I remember his mother, and this is interesting from the point of view of young women now. She was born, I believe, in 1910, so she was an older mother. She did not get married right away after she was engaged because she worked for a public utility. She enjoyed her job, and she had to quit when she got married. So she was I think she was probably near 30 because she wanted to work, and she had to choose between the two things.
That's great. I don't have to tell you, there is some stigma about choice. Firstly, how do you see it, and why do you think there's still stigma about choice despite the age of Roe v. Wade?
Well, I think that there has been a lot of pushback from the Catholic hierarchy, not so much from mainstream Protestant religions have generally in the past been more supportive, and some of the support for legalization actually grew out of mainstream Protestant ministers' experience working with women who were trying to access abortion. And I have heard some of those ministers speak, and they had a role, in pushing the movement forward. But there has been so much pushback by the Catholic hierarchy and also by now fundamentalist Protestantism. And I also think there's a real element of patriarchal fear of women having control and being decision makers. And I think we don't realize that's still there, but I think it's a really key part of it. It's sort of an undercurrent. So, and I'm interested that the tide has turned on so many social issues very quickly within the past, I would say, decade. And it seems to be only with reproductive rights that we seem to be almost falling backwards. I hate to say it, but I think that we are.
No, I agree. You do wonder. I mean, there are very few people in their 50s or 60s or older who don't remember the deaths from botched abortions, from illegal abortions, and yet the legalization through Roe v. Wade and the fact that the number of abortions is actually going down, and certainly that's essentially the number of safe abortions are going down, but it never got a foothold, did it, in amongst a lot of people. It's a very convenient, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it's a very convenient a scapegoat.
Yes, and I also think because of the stigma around it, that women who have abortions are often reluctant to talk about them. And, it seems to me that when people talk within their families about things that have been stigmatized, but when people know that there are people right around them who have experienced this, then it normalizes it, makes it more acceptable, and people understand it better. And I don't think that has happened yet to a great extent with the pro-choice movement. I know that there's some effort to have women tell their stories, but it takes a certain amount of courage, I think, to do that.
Yeah. Do you know of any other legal procedure where this happens? Where
No.
people are reluctant?
No. And I think for me, just backtracking a little bit, what what especially drew me to the movement is a realization from the very start that it was about more than abortion. It's about birth control as well. And now we're seeing that in discussion. I think, for a couple of decades when I would say that, people would say, oh, you're crazy. But I could see from the position I came from that my access to birth control came because the secular state allowed me to have access. If I had to work through the state overlaid by religious dogma, then maybe I would have access, maybe I wouldn't. And
Yes.
so I think I realized early on that access to any kind of reproductive health care that involved not being pregnant.
That's a very good point. And forgive me that I didn't bring that up, but access to contraception is one of those fundamental rights.
Yes, it is. And access for women under 18 is very controversial. And you have to ask, well, why is it, controversial? That here in McHenry County, in the mid 1990s, our public health department had Title X family planning funds. And part of the federal rule is that women under 18 have to have confidential access to birth control. This has nothing to do with abortion, it's birth control. And there was a big brouhaha in the county. There was an incident that occurred that was used to paint this as a really bad thing. And the elected county board ordered the Professional Board of Health to refuse the funding. Although the Board of Health, there was pushback, but in the end, the elected county board prevailed. And because we in McHenry County don't want girls under 18 to have birth control, you have to ask, what are people thinking, but.
And what are people doing about birth control? Young people. So I find it interesting that much of the MCCC board are, well, to put it bluntly, maybe past reproductive
Yes.
age.
Some well past.
But thank goodness for you. Your efforts are just magnanimous and wonderful. But how do you think we get more young people involved with this cause? It affects them, after all.
Well, it does. It does. I think there was a period of time when younger women didn't really feel a threat because they had easy access. I think now there are more restrictions. I think it's in the news. The restrictions are in the news. I think that young women are starting to wake up to what's happening. But I think we also need more outreach in the form of, for instance, podcasts, easy ways for people to be active, because young women are not that, well, they don't have time, for one thing, to come to meetings, So some of us in this older age group enjoy having a monthly meeting. We enjoy getting a newsletter in the mail and having a hard copy. And I think that the young people have moved on from that, so we have to be able to reach out to them where they are.
Well, that's true. There's certainly different ways of communication, and it's the onus is on us to traverse those areas
To open
because
those routes in a way.
exactly. Well, that's much better put than what I just said. Well, this has been fascinating. You're so kind to do this. I learned a lot. I enjoyed talking with you, and this is great. And I look forward to talking to everybody on the board.
Okay, and they're anxious to talk to you too. So thank you for taking on this project,
Oh,
Barbara.
I'm delighted. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Bye bye. Toby's Fund for Women's Health is a 501c3 project of McHenry County Citizens for Choice Education Fund. If you wish to get involved with Toby's Fund or MCCC, contact us at info@mcctoby'sfund.org. Thank you.